Hi there, and welcome back to another blog discussion, blog video discussion from awakentheworld.ca. My name is Garhen, and this afternoon we're going to be talking about recognizing ego and recognizing ego tendencies. Now, there's a misconception out there that ego is something you have to fight or something that you have to somehow kill. And, that's quite impossible, and it is not necessary, and it creates nothing but problems. One of the spiritual teachers of today, Eckhart Tolle, his teaching style and his awakening, and keep in mind that all paths lead to the top of the mountain. Okay, that's the deeper spiritual truth that we have to remember first and foremost at the beginning of the day. So let's stop right there and back this up one step. It doesn't matter whether you're a fundamental Christian or a conservative Muslim or a Buddhist, or have no defined belief system at all, or would consider yourself someone who's just working towards awakening. Whatever the case may be, all of those paths lead to the same mountaintop. There is no way to not get to the mountaintop. So we'll start right there by taking all the pressure off. Okay, the goal, of course, is to find the path that's going to be not the easiest necessarily, but it simply becomes more easy. It's learning how to travel, I guess is the right way to put it, on your journey. So let's go back to ego. We don't want to try and kill ego. What often happens, and I've seen this in my wife, and I've read it in a few posts, and I've responded in kind to it. You run the risk of dividing the ego, and the ego is what does this, and it does this as a defense mechanism. You run the risk of the ego dividing itself into two. There becomes an I that's working towards spiritual development or working towards becoming a more holy member of my religion. And then there's the ego, the thing that's to blame for everything that's happening inside of my head, the enemy that is at fault for whenever I fall off the path. And you perceive yourself fighting that inside you. And it's not. It's simply ego fighting ego. So that is also one of the primary tendencies that ego tends to exhibit. When it is first threatened and feels it's under threat of diminishment, even from within inside of itself, it will immediately split itself in an attempt to continue that structure on, regardless of what happens. The ego doesn't care what kind of structure, it has. It just cares that it actually has structure. So any identity will do with ego. The one thing it fears most, of course, is to be identity-less. So that's the first point we need to consider on this. You can liken ego really to, if you have a modern-day car, there's one, if not more, computer systems in that car that are running the car. That's very much what ego is. Now imagine that car's computer system is running amok. It's taking all that sensory input, all those things that are happening in its environment, and it's making decisions on where the car should go and what the car should do instead of you, the driver, doing that. And you're sitting there with your hands on your lap, helpless, thinking that indeed the car is in control. But it's not. So another egoic tendency that we can keep our eyes out for, and it's an easy one to see, is the overwhelming habit to blame externally anything that ego chooses to think, feel, or do that it knows is not right. And the reason it knows it's not right is because it will go out hunting for an excuse, a reason why it's okay to behave the way we behave. Anytime we catch ourselves in a situation where we are justifying our behavior based on someone else's behavior, we have to catch ourselves. We have to catch those moments and see that energy of ego and become conscious And my wife and I have what people would call difficulties from time to time. I mean, they're not really difficulties to us, though. And the reason being is this. When I feel the energetic arising of anger from my ego, oftentimes I will simply let that energy out. And I'll rant and rave about something for a minute or two. And then I will turn to my wife and I will say, thank you, honey. I appreciate you allowing me that release. I own it. It had nothing to do with you. It's me who's responsible for this. It's my choice. I recognize that. And it's gone. And my wife doesn't take it personally. And the same thing happens in reverse. Something will be on her mind, or she'll need to vent something about the way she's feeling about a situation in her life, usually around the difficulties with her family. And she will begin to unconsciously blame them for how she feels. And I will pull her back from that point and reestablish that it indeed is her choice. And the reason ego does this is to keep your own power from you. When you understand that you are a complete and whole being and that everything is within you, you no longer fall prone to those ego tendencies as often. So that's always something to keep in mind. When we're dealing with other people in our lives, there's this unconscious need for them to accept us, or accept our beliefs, or accept our words even. And this comes from another ego tendency. And that tendency is to put the I label on everything that it identifies with itself. So that would include things like your job. When you say, who are you to someone, a lot of times they say, well, I'm a nurse. Well, a nurse is a function. A nurse is a label that we place on a function. It is a role that someone takes on. But by no means is that person. It can define parameters of their relative life, that's for sure. And that's where another big question that's asked all the time. Someone asked me the other day, they said, well, if ego isn't really necessary, and I said, whoa, boy, I keep hitting my microphone, sorry about that. Flailing hands. If ego isn't necessary, and I said, whoa, ego is necessary. It is the relative world interface that we need as a higher spiritual being having this human experience. It is the connection between the two worlds. And it colors our experience here in a necessary way. In a way that allows the evolution and the growth to occur. And that's the beauty of it. Now, before I bumped the microphone and lost my train of thought, apparently it derailed back there in the hill somewhere. So I'm going to give you a real world example that's occurring with me right now. As I mentioned in our very first video, we had concerns that our 16-year-old laptop wasn't going to be able to handle this too well, and it's actually doing moderately okay as long as things are done one thing at a time. But we went ahead and we ordered a new machine for ourselves. Now, I'm pretty careful with the way we do things. So rather than going out there and purchasing a brand new machine, I purchased a 1-year lease back from Dell for about a third of the price of what the machine worth a year ago, with the same warranty and a new battery. Awesome deal. $500 instead of $1,400 and change. It was fantastic. But I had it shipped on 2-day shipping because I wanted to get the laptop here before the end of the week and get some things transferred over and the programs installed, etc. Well, anyways, come Wednesday, the shipping notification that said it was going to arrive Wednesday was gone, and now it said Friday. So when I looked at the tracking, the laptop had come within 1 hour of our house and then moved a couple hours away to some other depot and then was transferred all the way back down to the lower mainland. And as of Friday, it mysteriously showed back up in Kelowna an hour from here at 5 a.m. in the morning, and no one seems to know where it's gone since then. Now, I don't mind telling you that in times past, that would have turned me into a raging lunatic. Yeah, I was that bad. I would have been yelling and swearing and cursing. And now today I can sit back instead and I can still watch the energy of ego trying to start all those processes up again. And that will go on the rest of your days. The difference is you will reach a point where you can look at that rising energy and go, oh, it's you again and your old behaviors. That's okay. It's not as big a problem as you think it is. So that's what we're going to wrap up today. I hope this little video has been helpful to identify some of the egoic tendencies that you may see in your own lives. It's also very important to be easy on yourself. You know, drop the ideas of should think this way or should not think this way. Just learn to observe. It's helpful for me to realize that my ego is more of an insane roommate that simply can't stop talking than myself. And in that, I learned to listen to it more, because you should listen, and then guide it gently into a place where it's okay. Again, it's wonderful to talk to you. Namaste, and blessings for all of you throughout the world, all our brothers and sisters. I look forward to the day where we all accept that we're one people and one planet and one consciousness, and can literally recreate our world overnight and move humanity forward and end the suffering in our world that simply does not need to be. Have a wonderful day.